Hello, hello! Welcome back to Loki's Librarian. If you are new here, welcome. I am your librarian, Katrina, and on Sundays I do a thing called Books and Booze, where I review a book and mix up a cocktail. It is the last Sunday of the month, so I am moving into my exploration of religion, making this week's book, Why Religion Matters, The Fate of the Human Spirit in an Age of Disbelief by Huston Smith. The accompanying cocktail is My New Religion, which is 1.5 ounces of Reposado tequila, 3/4 ounce Campari, 2/3 ounce, which is going to be fun to measure out, of lemon juice, and 1/4 ounce of simple syrup. So let's do this. Now, I had initially planned to read a different Huston Smith book this week, but then I found this one and I thought, yes, why does religion matter? Why should we care? And, well, to be perfectly honest, I'm not entirely certain that he answered the question. I was a little disappointed, honestly. Let's go back to the beginning with that idea. You'll see what I mean by the time the review is done. So, Mr. Smith was born to Christian missionaries in China, and I did Google this in 1919, and religion was part of the air he breathed on the day he was born. Chinese missionaries, Christian missionaries in China, that was very much what he grew up around and surrounded by. And he has unquestionably had, all right, so this is going to be a little bit less than 3/4 ounce of Campari. If I'd known I was that low, I would have bought another small bottle. But that's fine. We're going to go with that. Campari is a bitter anyways, and the lemon will make it sour, so this is fine. So anyways, so that's what he grew up with, and he's unquestionably well-traveled, well-read. He's reviewed and researched all the religions. That's the book I'm going to read next month by him, actually, is The World's Religions, which covers, I think, the Big 12 or something like that. So this isn't like a preachy book on, this is why God is the best and we should all follow God. He's a cool Christian, if you will, all right? Not one of the proselytizers who's going to try and make everybody miserable if they don't follow their version of God, right? I got fresh lemon, and it's squeezing is a mess. And I have no doubt that he was a genuinely good man, was because he passed away in 2016, excuse me, so he was 97 if he was born in 1919. So I think he was probably a genuinely good man. Skill at making connections with people, etc., etc. The challenge with this book is, and I'm fairly certain without doing too deep a dive into his biography, that he was a professor of the American university system, like in the American university system. What makes me say that? Well, I take it back. I know for sure he was. I think at Berkeley. I think that was actually in the book that he was a professor at Berkeley. Problem is, what have we learned from all the reading I've done over the last 5 years about the American educational system and how absolutely corrupt and defunct it has become as a result of postmodernism? And he spends the first half of the book trying to justify the existence of religion to a postmodernist philosopher, in a postmodern philosophy, if you will. So he's trying to explain to the people who run the universities why his passion and meaning is relevant into the 21st century. And this is a philosophical bent, the postmodernist who believed when Clinton said it depends on what the meaning of is was like a profound statement rather than the political dodge that it actually was, right? They're like, oh, that's profound, man. Clinton's really smart because he's right. Cool. Because postmodernists try to erase the meaning of all language, which he actually does comment on in the book. Let me shake this up. So, very frustrating there. He's trying to bring the postmodernists on board and explaining why they should care. And frankly, to my way of thinking, I don't think that postmodernism allows for any religion, not just Christianity, but any belief system at all. It flies in the face of what postmodern philosophy teaches. He bends mental gymnastics trying to show that postmodernists have contributed anything rather than confusion to the world, granting them like fully saying they're responsible for the civil rights movements, that's a win, and the abolition of slavery, which completely erases the contributions of the very religionists and people who directly led to the contributions of both of those. And I'm not talking about like the Civil War and Abe Lincoln. I'm talking about before that with John Brown and Harper's Ferry, the man who actually went to the gallows fighting for his belief in abolition and the evils of slavery. And he was definitely not a postmodernist. This was 100 years before postmodernism became a thing. Erases that contribution. Erases the contributions of the inestimable Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., arguably the greatest voice of the civil rights movement, who was decidedly not a postmodernist. He was a reverend, right? So it erases all the good that religion did do in fighting the evils of the world. So that was very frustrating. But when you owe your fealty to the university system of the 20th century America, which blindly embraced postmodernism, you pretty much have to bend the knee and kiss the feet of the blessed saints Michel Foucault and Jean-Paul Sartre. And it's especially interesting how much he danced around this, given that he ends the book with some of the premier scientists of the 20th century, everyone from Albert Einstein to Werner Heisenberg to Oppenheimer, all quoting various religious scriptures in their lives in regards to things that they have wrought as a result of their science. I mean, Oppenheimer quoted, I think it was the Bhagavad Gita. Einstein was famously Jewish. Heisenberg, his uncertainty principle basically came about directly as a result of his faith in the things that can't be known. And he acknowledged that there's something, and they all the top scientists acknowledge that there is something completely ineffable about the universe. And postmodernists don't. Neither do scientisms, which he does address. Having ranted on that topic, what did Smith do well with trying to explain why religion matters? Well, I mean, he did a decent job explaining why religion has steadily been shunted to the background, likening religion's loss to a tunnel composed of equal parts scientism, which is that, we're all very familiar with scientism now after, the post-pandemic world where I believe science. Yeah. If you believe science, then you are not, in fact, a scientist. You are, in fact, a religionist. Your God is now science, which he actually does address that. So that was interesting. I think his book was published in 1999 or 2000. So, 20 years before scientism really hit mainstream, he acknowledged that there was a problem there. Let's try this. I would not choose this as a religion. I'm kind of glad I only had a half ounce of Campari because, that's bitter. Campari and tequila is not a happy combination. That is bitter. Not even sour. Sour I could deal with. Bitter. So, higher education is another part of the tunnel. Is interesting. He recognizes that higher education is contributing to the problem of the loss of religion in the 20th and 21st centuries, but failed to make the connection between postmodernist takeover of higher religion and that loss. The media, my God, I don't think anybody questioned the media has been trying to destroy religion forever. He traces it back specifically to the Scopes trial in 1925. And actually referenced a book in there specifically about the Scopes trial, which I immediately added to and he references several books, but this one I added to my wish list because I'm like, that sounds interesting. Let's see what exactly Hollywood has done to fuck that up, because they fuck everything else up. So the media and then the law. And Congress is specifically prohibited from, making a law that abridges the freedom of religion. That, however, does not preclude the 10th Amendment kicking in and allowing the states to do so. And this has actually been argued in front of the Supreme Court, and the court came down on the side of the states and said, no, the Native Americans can't use peyote because the federal law says it's illegal. He covers it like Congress then did go in and make a law saying, well, yes, the Native Americans can do whatever the hell they want. I'm going to learn more about that. There's a book I actually specifically have picked out to read on that. So we'll go into that a little bit later this year. September, I think. I have that ladled out. So those are the four things he said are basically narrowing down and destroying religion. Why not? And he's not saying, just Christianity. This is all religion, all faiths. Christians have been screaming about a war against Christmas for decades at this point. But Smith makes an interesting case for all religions being under attack. Except for possibly Islam. We all know that following Charlie Hebdo, Islam is completely fucking untouchable, right? Don't mock Islam. God, they got good PR. Unquestionably, Islam has good PR. Has to have. For everything that's happened and for people to still be, nah, man, nah, it's cool. I shouldn't say that. Because I haven't read the Quran yet, and I'm going to. It's part of this whole religious journey is to read the individual scriptures of each of these religions as I can. So I want to see the beauty of it. He did make an interesting point in here, which I thought, okay, that's spot on. He was, pulled into a conversation or something on the state of Israel-Palestine, because that's been going on since, the 1940s. And what does he think about, Islam versus Judaism? And he said, look, this isn't about Islam or Judaism. This is about land. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. This actually has nothing to do with either of those faiths and everything to do with the land they're standing on. So that was actually a fairly astute observation. So kudos there. So I very much liked how he describes 4 spiritual personality types: the atheist, the polytheist, the monotheist, and the mystic. And he describes each of those, so he doesn't just throw them out there. So, I mean, atheist, he breaks down the Greek. The prefix a means negation. So Gnostic knows, the agnostic does not know. Atheism does not know God. The atheist view stops with what is known, does not allow for what else is out there that is not known yet. It's a very narrow worldview, basically. And clearly I'll drink it, but it's not awesome. The polytheist, now Smith, he was a minister. I think he was a Methodist minister. I might have the specific branch of Christianity, but I'm pretty sure it was Methodist. But you can tell I think he enjoys polytheists. Not to mock, not to belittle. I genuinely don't get that sense at all. Like, again, he's a cool Christian. He's not mocking anybody for their beliefs to the face. I feel like he's very open-minded in there. In his definition, a polytheist is not just like the pagan or Wiccan community who believes in many gods, like, you know, the Wiccans who believe in, you know, the Cernunnos and Caradwyn, for example, you know, the Irish deities. But someone who considers the animating force in all life and sees spirits in all life. So this could include, like, Shintoism. Wait, did I use that one right? Hold on. I have to make sure I'm thinking of the right religion, because I would actually feel bad if I wasn't. Yes. I thought I got it right. Shintoism. Japan's indigenous religion, deeply intertwined with Japanese culture and history, characterized by a reverence for nature, ancestral spirits, and a multitude of deities called kami. So, I think he has respect for that. But, you know, and anybody who considers the animating force in all life, sees spirits in all life, that's polytheism as he is defining it. And Smith explains, quote, "The polytheist accepts everything the atheist takes to be real and adds spirit to it. It's as if the polytheist were to say to the atheist, I see everything you tell me to see. It is only what I see in addition and you do not that divides us." So, a step above atheism, but not quite the monotheist, which he's going to be a monotheist, right? He is a Methodist minister. He is a Christian, so he's going to be a monotheist, which he actually labels as only slightly more advanced than the polytheist. Smith says polytheists see there is good and evil all around. Monotheists see this too, but believe the good is winning. Fair enough. And the mystics is what we should all strive to be, which is why it is so very rare. There are mystic traditions. He specifically quotes Sufism, which is fair enough. That's what the Sufis do. Famously, you may or may not have seen them because they've actually done tours, believe it or not, called, you would know them as whirling dervishes. As Smith explains, quote, "Value increases as we mount the 4 levels. The atheist worldview contains very little value." All right, in sharp contrast, the polytheist world teems with value. The monotheists believe that good has the upper hand, and in the mystic's worldview, evil drops from the picture and only good remains. There's only God. Whoever God may be for you, right? Can you imagine what a blessed world we would all live in if we only saw the good in each other and only saw the good in the world around us? Like everybody, not just one person. I mean, one person, that's the mystic, God bless them, go for it. But everybody only saw the good in those around them and strived to be the good around them. The world would be a madly different place if people just took that to heart. And as far as I know, that's what most religions preach, is be the good in the world. But again, I'm at the very beginning of my journey. I could be dead wrong on that. We're going to find out. How much of this is the husband going to want to try? That's enough. It kind of tastes vaguely like soap. This book was very much a mixed bag for me. I think religion does matter because I think it helps us all to find meaning in the world around us. Last week's book, Viktor Frankl's, Man's Search for Meaning, I commented on the first foreword to the book was written by a psychiatrist or psychologist, and the one in the version I read was written by a rabbi, because God helps us to find the meaning in the life. He does quote, and this is actually very interesting, theodicy, which, let me see if I can find that exact quote, because it was actually a really great quote on theodicy. So theodicy is that, if God is real, why does he allow evil to happen? Okay, that's that general comment that most atheists throw out there. If God is real, why did the Holocaust happen? Well, he He provides 2 short answers, but I'm only going to provide one of his, all right? When a 2-year-old drops their ice cream cone, that's a tragedy. The 2-year-old, but the mother is like, this isn't a tragedy. This is life. This shit happens, right? So can there be an understanding of life so staggering in its immensity that in comparison to it, even gulags and the Holocaust seem like dropped ice cream cones? Basically, God is so big that the singular tragedies that mankind has inflicted on each other is not seen as a tragedy to him or her, whatever you believe. And that is a very deeply philosophical thought to ponder on, right? Is God so big that the things that we do to each other is just nothing to him? Doesn't that make you feel small? So it's a mixed bag, all right? I mean, he compares the mental and spiritual state of the world as being bookended between 2 extreme philosophies. I mean, the first being Plato's allegory of the cave, very old philosophy. Briefly, I think I have this on my read list later, but briefly, the allegory of the cave is basically people who are chained and live their whole lives in a cave, and they don't see the outside world. All they get are shadows on the cave wall that are described to them from other people, but they don't actually get to see the outside world, right? So they're living in the dark with these half-assed shadows and faulty descriptions to guide them. That's the first bookend. And then at the other far extreme of the philosopher's bookend is Friedrich Nietzsche's madman running through the streets proclaiming that God is dead. God is dead. And so we're bookended between these 2 extremities of philosophies, which interestingly doesn't allow for postmodernism, which basically just sucks. You may or may not have noticed I have very little use for postmodernist philosophy. I really should read a book on it to see if that changes. But I feel like I do enough damage to my brain with the alcohol. I don't need to ingest the bullshit on top of it. I don't know. I mean, that's what the postmodernist believes, right? That God is dead, which is why I am dismayed with how much time he spent defending postmodernism. I mean, especially as he pulls no punches when he equally decries the horrors of fascism and communism, right? That quote from the book, right? Is there anything so small that gulags and the Holocaust are just seen as nothing? All right, he acknowledges the horrors of Stalinism and Maoism, but can't acknowledge that postmodernism feeds those horrors. Maybe he's just not reading the books I read, or didn't read the books I read, since he's passed away now. I think that he would have done better to spend more time explaining how religion helps keep people in the darkest times from drowning in nihilism, like Viktor Frankl, like Alexander Solzhenitsyn. I mean, hell, even Jesus himself, which, if my half-assed remembering of Bible stories read while I was sitting in the dentist's waiting room when I was a kid 30 frickin' years ago, 40 years ago. Hold on. My husband's not getting any cocktail because that number just hit me. Hold on. He can have the watered down scraps from the cocktail mixer. If those half-assed remembered Bible stories is anything, Jesus never stopped believing in God our Father. Even as he hung dying on the cross, he still kept that faith that kept him from drowning in nihilism and saying, fuck this, I died for nothing. Because he never believed it, because he always had that faith in a higher religious purpose. And, there's something there. That belief that it's not all for nothing, that there is meaning and purpose in life. That's what religion gives you. He doesn't mention that. I got that from reading Viktor Frankl's book, right? Faith helps you find meaning. Faith in something. Faith in anything, all right? It doesn't have to be God, doesn't have to be Yahweh, doesn't have to be Allah, doesn't have to be Buddha. It could be faith in anything. Even if it's just faith that the earth is out there and that you need to dig your feet into the dirt every now and then to feel grounded. Fine. That helps to keep you centered and focused and helps you to touch grass and realize that the world is not that bad. All right? The news media feeds, if it bleeds, it leads. That's what they tell you. But the world is not that bad. There are good people out there doing good things. Find those news stories. Search them out. All right? There's this fantastic little Instagram account called The Good News Girl who posts something positive every day. I freaking love her. She's my uplifting spirit when I'm having a down day. Go for it, man. No, that was not a paid promotion. She's just somebody I follow and think is great. Religion matters because it helps you to see light in the darkness. And I can't help but feel that. I mean, Smith mentions the Old Testament and God saying, let there be light. And there was light. And he saw that it was good. He mentions that. But then he spends so much time trying to apologize to the postmodernists for his continuing belief in God that he failed to explain to those searchers after truth why their own search was not futile. And that was a missed opportunity. And that's it for this week. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe. I will see you guys next Sunday.